Yeah, I'm comfortable sitting here because I have to focus on the reading. So it's a pleasure for me to be here, and I'm going to start with some news from Amsterdam concerning the Institute of Network Cultures that I've been leading for over 22 years. And because of mandatory retirement, we will have to close down the center inside the Polytech in Amsterdam, and we are going to become an independent, autonomous organization. Maybe again, depending on your perspective. I've been running small independent organizations for a long time, and I have quite some experience with that, so we're confident that from September onwards we can rebuild it, and we would like to invite you all to contact us, propose things, collaborations. We're very open. And as you might know, we have been running since 2014 for about a decade the Money Lab project, and this is something that we also would like to continue. And this is why it's such a great opportunity for me to be here and talk about my work. Here you see the collaboration with Ukraine TV and the Stream Art Network. We've been known lately, especially because of our digital publishing experiments. But we have moved quite substantially into the realm of PeerTube and stream art collaborations, starting from Krakow and then together with groups in Vilnius, in Budapest, and many other places. We find that the streaming collaborations are a living alternative for the social media blues experienced by so many young people, right? We don't believe that going into the forest, going offline is necessarily the right move. We believe that we need to redefine how tech should operate. And the cipher, crypto, blockchain part, is an integral part of that. But because this has been stagnating in our view, very much so, not because of our efforts, not because of our ideas, but I would say because the world in general around us is becoming way and way more techno-libertarian, way more right-wing populist, straight-out conservative, also in a country like the Netherlands. So this is, and this really works against our objectives. And so we have to become resilient ourselves and count on setbacks. These are some of the research directions that at the moment we are proposing. So, but we are actually very open in the coming years if you would like to push this in a general direction. As you can see there on the left side below, it says Art and Precarity, Creative Reset Beyond Money Lab. That's a bit of the context that in our terminology, let's say the things that we are dealing with here in this field. Then this is further materialized in a collaboration with Transmediale, and that's a project that is going to start shortly. It's called Solidarity Economies Lab. So that's something also directly related to all the issues that we're dealing with here today in Funkhaus. Okay, now I would like to focus on my new book, Platform Brutality, and I would like to read some of the parts, and I would like to see if the slides are moving by themselves. I don't know. I asked if that was possible, but I'm not really sure. So maybe I'll have to do it manually. Let's see. So this book kind of reflects on the last 3 years post-COVID, and for me it became quite obvious that we were facing a violent turn of technology and the internet. And this was rather difficult because I'm coming from the generation of the 80s and 90s, talking about public access, open source free software, facilities, and the idea that the internet would grow and would facilitate was kind of a consensus. Of course, it was about the direction, and it was in direct fight with state censorship or with large corporations, but still there was this idea that that this field was somehow still growing, and that it was just a hegemonic fight, basically, right? About concepts, about maybe also about the hearts and minds of people. This story has come to an end. And this kind of idea that after a long period of many decades of growth, the movement is now turning inside, into itself. So there is a violent implosion, especially quite visible, of course, since last year, since 2025. Okay. All right. The stagnation of the platform has brought us back to the military origin of the internet. What happens when mindless and distracted users remain stuck with no end in sight? The destruction of attention starts to hurt, eventually turning into structural violence. And this idea of structural violence is interesting. This comes very much from, let's say, the context of the 1970s, but I find it interesting. It's also known as abstract violence, right, or indirect violence, but it's important to notice, and Kate Dean has done that also here in the speech before, and I would like to say my work really builds on his work, that abstract violence at some point, for some, not for all, will become real violence. Yeah, and that's what this talk is also about, and that's, I think, what needs to be addressed more. Platforms are the unseen and behave like innocent bystanders, pretending never to be responsible for anything. They were intended for users to look straight through them and not notice their design anymore. Thanks to mundane and smooth functionality. Transparency makes it hard to see them as distinct objects. Platforms do not shine, to put it in the words of the late Dutch architecture theorist Maurice Nio. So mentally speaking, users have been proven incapable of facing these changes. Glued to the phone, users do not even notice they're logged in. In a matter of seconds, they've liked this, purchased that, responded with an emoji, hovering around the apps. The mindless online presence has turned subconscious. And this subconscious state is related to this violent turn. So the purpose of the platform is to do what it does. And this is kind of self-evident. Yeah? No higher goal or problem needs to be resolved. Once you've created a profile and clicked on something, the endless scroll takes over. From the moment you've signed up, the platform presents itself as a self-evident totality, a service that was, is, and always will be ready to lure you into more transactions. Now that you're part of the flow, any attention hook can pull you away. There's no longer the tiring obligation to build your social network. And as you might know, my work is very much defined about this kind of decline, very subtle decline of networking and social networks, right? And this earlier transition, let's say, from social networks to social media platforms. Now I turn to the term itself, the term platform brutality. And it was instigated, of course, as you can guess, by Achille Mbembe's book called Brutalism. I can highly recommend you. It's a book from 2020. And yeah, I've applied many of his core concepts to this turn. So the thesis here is that instead of being portrayed as a machine of endless facilitation, the internet has hit a historical wall. And in response to this change with an inner destructive energy. As planetary machines in a murderous frenzy state, platforms are still at full capacity for mobilizing resources. So they're not dead in that sense. They're at maximum capacity. But this state can, in a way, no longer be maintained, and we all know that. As a vast plane, lacking depth, it facilitates a never-ending, one-dimensional trip that is impossible to quit. As lost subjects endless toil around inside it, digital reason has a hard time explaining the matter. As an example of today's violence, after the book, I've been writing more about this concept of deletion. And I'm calling for more theory, more reflection, and even poetry of deletion, what it means to delete. Because the violent turn will eventually lead to a variety of forms of deletion. Yeah, digitally erasing the other is both a symbolic and literal act. The public gesture of canceling individuals or calling out groups, maybe you remember, cancel culture, and I wrote about that in my previous book, Stuck on the Platform, is kind of a social experiment, but much smaller and not really harmless. What we should look at instead is mass deletion, right? Because deletion is the technical manifestation of a cold act. and not just a symbol of moral condemnation, which we could still associate with cancel culture. And of course, maybe you remember, it was Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency's main weapon, right? He specialized in tracing. He did that earlier on when he took over Twitter. And in the months, most active months of Doge, maybe you remember, they were actively searching for entire databases to be deleted permanently, by the way, right? Because you could say, okay, deletion is not so harmful because you can always reinstall a copy, right? No, they tried very, very hard to instate a culture in which the deletion of 300,000 people that they fired was going to be permanent, right? And I think the Doge capital is again an experiment that we will face larger. I would like to end here with a quote of Hannah Arendt, who has this interesting essay from '69 on violence. And it's a hopeful quote, because it indicates also that we could analyze all this as a sign that Silicon Valley's power is waning. As Hannah Arendt writes, power and violence are opposites. Violence appears where power is in jeopardy. Violence can destroy power, but it's incapable of creating it. Right? So this is, for me, a very key insight. Following her argument, we could say that violence is not a display of tech power, but arises from its moment of impotence. And impotence, then, maybe I use this term in the tradition of Franco Berardi, who writes about this. And maybe also Bernard Stiegler's notion of, in the same, let's say, tradition. So, big tech hegemony evaporates into thin air when soft power no longer works. We see platforms moving beyond optimization and openly committing forms of structural violence. The Trump-Musk-Doge saga exemplifies that the Californian ideology, once defined by Richard Barbuk and Andy Cameron, and uncontested for 3 decades, has lost its hegemony and is showing its brutal side. Doge and Palantir stand for the transition to Californian violence. We delete you was going to be the next battle cry for the years to come. Thank you very much.